morning. Thank you for being here this morning. As I shared with the family of Dominique Allen this morning that from our office perspective, we have to have these meetings way too often to meet with family members of those who have been victims of homicides here in Marion County. But the death of Dominique Allen was particularly egregious, and our sympathies again go out to her family. And before I go over the charges that have been filed this morning, I also would like to extend our commendation to the detectives and officers of IMPD whose dogged work in this case, and in particular Detective Marcus Kennedy, has led to the filing of charges in the death of Dominique. We have today filed a charge of murder against William Golston and the murder of Dominique Allen. In a nutshell, the probable cause sets forth the facts as follows. Dominique's purse and sandals were recovered in 1919 West 10th Street. Her body was discovered, as you know, at 1108 North Elder. And Mr. Golston, who had been released to parole from DOC in May of this year, had given an address of 1025 North Traub as to where he would be residing. That is in the same general area as to where both Dominique's belongings and her body were recovered. After the discovery of Dominique's body, male DNA was found in various spots, including on her sandal at the first location and on her foot and hand of her body. A DNA match has been made to Mr. Golston on those three locations. Mr. Golston, who had subsequently been picked up for a parole violation and was in custody for alleged parole violation, was interviewed, and Mr. Golston denied being in Marion County in the month of August and denied knowing anything about Miss Allen. Those are the circumstances that have led to the charges filed today. With that, Chief Hite.
Thank you, Mr. Curry. Thank the prosecutor's office for the outstanding work, but also have to remember that we are a team, and we have a great investigative team, in this particular case led by Detective Kennedy. But the family here is gathered around because in the season of caring and sharing, and as we go into Thanksgiving season, we want to start the healing process for the family. They've been stoic and steadfast. We want to thank the clergy and the faith community for staying with us, community at large and the media for supporting us and keeping us fresh on the front burners. There is no reason for us not to seek justice in this case for a 15-year-old child who lost her life. And we have to remember we have to protect our children as they're our most precious resource. But at this point, I'm going to shut down and let Detective Kennedy share some words with you.
Good morning. Not only does this case give closure to the family, but also as far as the community. I mean, it wasn't anywhere in the city that myself and the other detectives weren't asked what's going on with Dominique Allen's case, what's going on with that case, anything new. And also the media, you know, keeping it in the forefront. So that's what we're really glad at. Okay.
Commander Hoffman, who is commander of the district where the incident occurred.
Not a day went by since this incident occurred that I wasn't asked for updates. The Near West community, and in my opinion, the entire Indianapolis community, was very concerned about the case, and the outpouring of support that we received from our community on the Near West side and all over the city was, in my opinion, very moving. I'm very thankful for all the tips that came in. As you know, at the onset of this case and throughout the investigation, investigators, myself, the police department, everybody was asking for input from the community, and that's exactly what we received. As Chief alluded to, and Detective Kennedy, and it is a partnership, and I'm proud to be a member of this agency and associated with the prosecutor's office, our faith-based community, and this wonderful family. It's a sad day, but also one that gives us hope.
We'll take a few questions.
Terry, do you believe William Goldston is a serial killer? And if not, are you investigating him for other murders, specifically African-American women in our city?
Not that we're aware at this time.
But are you testing? Do you know if IMPD is testing?
I can't speak to that. I can't speak to that.
You can't speak to it at this
No,
point?
no.
Terry, what led you to Mr. Goldston's placement being a person of interest?
The DNA match with his DNA in the database.
So this was
His DNA was in the database, right, and so the crime lab made that hit and that match.
Do you believe Goldston acted alone?
At this point, I can't speak to that.
Prosecutor, can you say if the Allen family or family had ever known this man or encountered this man any time in the past?
No, we have no reason to know that there had been any prior meeting or acquaintances between the two. No.
Had Goldston beaten prior murder cases? Had he been found not guilty in prior cases?
Yes, he was found not guilty of a murder case, I believe, in 2002. It was in 2002.
Was sex involved in that too?
I really can't speak to that at this point. I think it'd be inappropriate. Again, as you know, we are limited to addressing only things that are in the public record at that point. So.
Can you speak to the fact that he was put in prison as a felon with a gun? It seems like he was possibly let out early in May.
No, I don't believe that is true. I don't believe he was let out early. If you look at the record, he received a 16-year sentence in 2004, but at that time was also given 171 days credit. He was released to parole in May of this year, and so that does roughly equate to an eight-year service, which would be what you would expect with a 16-year executed sentence with good time. So it would appear that would appear to be the case based upon the record.
Detective, could you talk about the role the community played, the attention came in, the hours you put in?
Well, community played a large part in it. I mean, myself and my partner, we spent days and days at Ben Davis speaking to all the kids there. Again, the overwhelming number of people that were actually willing to talk to us. Not only that, but the family, you know, with their rallies and everything else. I mean, that kept us motivated. And like I said, this is one that the community need to have solved.
Chief, hi. Go ahead.
Marcus, can you tell us, at what point did you think that Mr. Goldston was suspect in this case? And how vigorously did you go after that?
Well, when we got the initial DNA hit, again, we had to find out whether or not the family knew this person. And then once we were convinced that the information that we had that they didn't, that's when we began to look at him real hard.
Do you have any indication of how he came to be on that street that morning?
We still don't know that at this point.
Chief,
Characterize this as a crime of opportunity? Just happened to see her there?
Again, at this time, we just don't know. Don't know.
question for Chief Hyde. As you know, the bodies of 5 African-American women were found near Yandees. Those cases are unsolved. Are you going to instruct your detectives to possibly look and see if Goldston is connected to those?
What I'm going to do is instruct the community to do exactly what they did in this case. Remain vigilant, turn over information to our fine detectives in the prosecutor's office. But this is a family issue in terms of violence in this community. We've been having a tremendous amount of support from the clergy and the community at large to help us solve these cases. We can't do this alone. So as much information you can give us, the more information we can give you in terms of how we begin to solve these cases.
Gotcha. Chief Hyde, you said the community, but what about your detectives?
That's part of their mission. Detectives are always going to be out there doing their job, looking for information. As you heard, he was at Ben Davis and in the community relentlessly. But we also are not going to tell you everything we're doing in terms of our investigative tools, but we do have investigations going on with the community support to be able to identify persons out there who commit violent crimes in their community daily.
Is William Goldston one of those people?
Whoever it is, we continue. As you said, we use scientific information and DNA to uncover this case, and there are other cases. Hopefully, down the line, we'll do the same, and if not, with community support, we'll be able to bring people to justice.
Detective Kennedy, have you been involved in the investigations into the deaths of those women found over on Columbia Avenue?
No, not me personally.
When did you get the DNA evidence back?
Just within the last week.
It was about a week and a half. 2 weeks ago.
And you sent it off presumably immediately after the incident, after the crime. You collected it, so...
Yes.
So it was about 2.5 months or so, almost 3 months. Is that about typical for getting DNA evidence back, lab results?
Usually it takes a little bit longer, but again, because of the type of case and the hard work of the crime lab, they rushed it through, and we were able to get it sooner than what we normally would.
Is that, do you have any, I mean, it sounded like immediately after you got the DNA evidence, you had a match, you had a suspect. Was there...
That's not accurate, no.
No. Well, how would you characterize it?
Well, I think the time frame set forth in the probable cause, but no. Obviously, in any given circumstance, the evidence is collected at the scene and submitted to the crime lab, and then they go through the processes that are required. And so it would have been submitted immediately to the crime lab, but they have to go through the processes they do. And as Detective Kennedy said, actually, because they expedited the analysis here, we got the results a little quicker than we typically would.
One of the family members.
Yeah, and at this point, the family members are going to take any questions here during the press conference. They will be available to speak afterwards. And in that regard, I was going to add the following admonition to all of you, please, that I've shared with them. And that is, any of us here, the family members, the prosecutor's office, the police, are limited in what we can say at this time, and only to things that are in the public record, as you well know. And so I would ask each of you to also exercise some restraint in the sort of questions you ask of the family, so that none of us are involved in saying things that we should not say, given the pendency of this case.
Mr. Wilson interviewed before the DNA match?
Ma'am.
Is there any indication that he followed Dominique on social media or stalked her on the internet?
At this point, no, there's no indication that that's the case. Yes.
Was Mr. Wilson interviewed before the DNA match came back?
No, it was the DNA match in the database, which brought Mr. Golston's name to the attention of the detectives.
Which crime lab did you use?
We used the Marion County Crime Lab for all of our work.
When did you interview Jordan Golston? Was that before or after the match came back? Was he at all in...
No, and again, Mr. Golston was not a person of interest in this case until the DNA match occurred.
I was just wondering when the interview occurred, because it looks like the first instance that a profile had been obtained was on November 6th. So was it earlier this month that he was interviewed? Or?
November 10th.
Okay.
I realize you were a prosecutor in 2002, but do you,
That's correct.
Do you have any insight into what happened with that trial, why the jury?
No, at this point, I do not. But my understanding is the case went to trial, and what little I do know is that one of the key witnesses, I am told, again, because we were not there, I am told recanted testimony or changed testimony, and ultimately there was a finding not guilty in that case.
Can you talk about just how it seems like maybe the suspect is trying to cover up evidence left behind in this case?
Well, certainly from any of the circumstances of this case, there are inferences to be drawn from what occurred, but that's more appropriate for argument at trial as opposed to discussing today.
And where was he arrested at?
In Bluffton, Indiana, for, I believe, the parole violation is alleged to be failure to report as required on his parole, and he was arrested on the parole violation in Bluffton.
You know what he was doing down there?
No, I do not.
What can you speak to his knowledge of the neighborhood? You said he had an address there at some point. Can you elaborate a little bit on how familiar he was with that neighborhood?
No, and again, we cannot speak to anything that is not in the public record. And at this point, what is set forth in the probable cause is what we can say, which is he reported to parole, and when he was released on parole, that he would be living at that address. I think it was 1025 North Traub is what he reported to the DOC as to would be his residence when released on parole, and that is in the same vicinity. Thank you.
DNA from his DOC already?
Pardon?
You already had his DNA in the system?
Yes, he was in the database, yes.
When was he arrested? What day?
On the parole violation or on this?
November 10th.
And was he held in a local jail in Lupton until...
Our
No,
live
he was-
coverage
he was brought
continues
here.
here on HTSN as the Marion County Prosecutor Terry Curry makes it official, telling us all now that William Golston faces a charge of murder in connection to the death of 15-year-old Dominique Allen, the Ben Davis student that was killed in August. Mr. Curry saying that DNA linked Golston to this crime, in fact saying that DNA was found in 3 locations, went as far as to also say that Golston denied having any knowledge of Dominique or being in Marion County at the time of her death. It's a story that will continue to follow this morning throughout the day here on our website, theindychannel.com. We'll have a live report on the news at noon. You're watching HTSN.